if you want to print money with your business, the most predictable way of doing it is by actually leveraging paid ads. Not just predictable, but also sustainable and scalable and profitable. You can't really rely on referrals or affiliates or even organic growth because you never know with this algorithm what's going to happen. And so in this video, I'm going to break down for you exactly what's required to put $1 into ads and get on the back end $2, $3, $4, even $5 based on your strategy. And one of the biggest things that you want to have in mind when it comes to succeeding in paid media is actually having the right strategy. It's not so much about your price points or even your target market, but it's really understanding how do you package that offer and position it in a way that's going to be attractive enough to get people to notice you and want to exchange their money for your service. And there are 3 key pillars that we work our client through and that we actually have in mind whenever times come for us to actually scale the client. So I've been running paid media, paid ads for clients for the past 5 years. We've worked with over 100 entrepreneurs, like over 300 entrepreneurs, spend millions on ads across Meta, YouTube, Google, helping them really scale their income and their impact. And we've been behind the scenes of some of the biggest launch in the info product space. And typically when clients come to us, they're in a season where they either want to have a more hands-on team that's going to come in and really support them with scaling the ads, or they want some consulting and they want to learn by themselves how to actually run ads in a way that's profitable and sustainable. And the goal for me on this video is actually for you to have the right strategy, the right process that you can take, and whether you share this with your CMO or you actually go ahead and implement it yourself, that's going to be up to you. But the goal is really to give you the clarity, because once you have the clarity, you can act with conviction. And my name is Joly Tematio and I run Drogon Consulting. We are a boutique ad agency where we focus primarily on working with personal brands, info product business owner, helping them scale income and impact using paid media without sacrificing the peace. That's our core motto. And yeah, over the past 5 years, we've worked with, again, 100 entrepreneurs, helping them really reach next level, scale to 7-figure years, multiple 7-figure years, 8-figure years, 7-figure months even. The very first thing, I'm going to share my screen so you can actually follow along. If you're listening to this episode, it's absolutely fine. I'm going to make sure that the breakdown is clear enough so you can totally follow along. So the very first part when it comes to printing money with paid media is really understanding your target market. Just want to And by understanding your target market here, I really mean understanding who you serve and, what they are struggling with. So this is going to look like understanding what's their goals, their pain points, their desires, what keeps them awake at night, just make it awake. What are some past mistakes that they still feel ashamed that they've made? We all have those. Also understanding though, so when a client comes on board, they say a avatar deep dive that we give them to really extract as much information about their target market as possible. So one thing that we like to think about is the 3P. So this is like a focus that you want to have. So you want to think about one specific problem that your offer is solving for a specific person, and that you are also giving them, that you are solving using a specific process. So what problem are you solving with that specific person, and what process are you can be using to achieve that result? That's really key as you go about understanding who your target market is. And it's even more important to understand who your target market is because you are running paid media, and sometimes there's this understanding or this desire to work with everyone. I see clients sometimes say, oh, I can help everybody. My offer is for everyone. And if you're primarily focused on organic, that it's a way of going about doing business that might work. But if you are running paid media, that's actually shooting yourself in the foot. Why? Because if your marketing, if your messaging is speaking to everyone, it's not going to attract anyone. You are going to spend a lot and your return are going to be abysmal. If there are any, you might even be at loss because your message is so broad that it's not attracting anyone. So you definitely want to get crystal clear on who specifically do I want to serve. And we like to call this your Olympian. Who is your Olympian buyer? The person who, and so there are tricky things that we look at when we think about extracting this Olympian buyer. It's really understanding who has spent the most money with you. So they've spent the most. Then who do you enjoy working the most with? That's very important, because you don't want to be a business with a client that you secretly dislike. So who do you enjoy working the most with? And the third thing is really going to be about who gets the best result and the fastest. So those guys that come in, they take action, they are committed to the process, they get the most amazing transformation. This is going to give you amazing insight around who do you want to focus on, because this is going to be the perfect intersection of those people that actually not only they pay, but they also, so this is your Olympian buyer or your Olympian prospect, right? Because at this intersection, you really get people that are going to have the biggest transformation working with you and are willingly going to pay to work with you. And that's ultimately what you want, right? And one way in which you can do this is actually analyzing your past customer data. And based on how those data look like, understanding, okay, who has spent the most with me in the past? You go through your CRM, look at those numbers and try and identify, okay, where did those guys come from? How do we actually get them in the funnel? And how can we actually create a messaging that's going to attract those guys specifically? And one of the key things when you're actually doing this exercise that allows you to disregard any person that's actually not going to be the most aligned with the vision of your business. One of the key things that happen when you run ads that sometimes you might attract low quality leads, or you might attract leads that don't even convert. And typically it's because you use a messaging that was compelling for that persona. Once you do this exercise, you really understand, okay, what are some of their triggers? So when we give our client the avatar deep dive questionnaires when they come in, we also understand, okay, what type of marketing do these guys find repulsive? What type of marketing are they attracted to? What are some of the offer that the competition is already showing them in your marketplace? Understanding really what your target market is seeing, what they've done, which action they've taken, and where they are at the moment is going to be the best thing that you can write your messaging. And I'm going to come back to this later on, because as you write your messaging, you want to think about your prospect, not just as to, in the marketing, typically we have this concept of your product is here at point A, and so this is them, and they are sad, right? And you want them to be here at point B, where they feel bigger, they have a big smile on their face. There we go. And so this B. And so there's kind of a bridge between A and B, right? And so this is your offer. Your offer is the fastest path, the most secure path, the safest path for them to go from point A to point B. That's what's typically given. One thing that you also want to understand is that your prospect, that's not really talked about much, is that it's also a segment here that's, let's just call this 0. So this is your prospect here at 0. And so this is even before they got to point A. So they had to go through a journey to get to where they are now. And as they were taking this journey, there are actions that they've taken, there are things that they've done, there are trauma that they've gone through that they are healing from, or there are different challenges or even setbacks, the investment that they've made that they haven't been profitable. And so in your messaging, you don't just want to talk about, oh, here's what you're gonna get, or here's where you're gonna be in terms. that these are their goals, their desire, their dreams, right? You also want to talk about, okay, what have you done in the past that you still regret? And why is this thing different? Because that's ultimately what they want to feel like, okay, in the past I've made some mistake. In the past I've had poor judgment. Why is this offer going to be different at all? And how can I have that safety? And that's the reason why the more you understand your target market, the better it is, because the more you understand this version of themselves that they are still carrying in the current version, like the past version and the current version and the future version, the more compelling your messaging is gonna be. Right. So I really wanted to highlight that because it's one thing which I don't see talk about at all for the most part when we talk about crafting messaging, but it's literally one of the key things that you want to be mindful of as you are going through this process and crafting your ideal target market. Now let's move on to our second step in this process of printing money with paid media, which is going to be actually creating the ad. This is where the fun begins. I mean, the fun begins from step one, but this is one of my favorite parts in the whole process. Now, we've first step, we've understood our target market at the deepest level, what's going on in their mind, what do they regret, frustration, desires, goal, all that good stuff. Now, those insights is literally what we're gonna use when it comes to writing ads. Writing ads, compelling ad copy is really a combination of art and science. And the science comes from understanding, okay, consumer psychology, triggers, emotional triggers, how to use words. Like Eben Pagan, one of my very first marketing mentors, used to say you have the $1 words and you have the $100 words, right? And understanding of how do we use those $100 words that have high emotional triggers to get our process to do what we want them to, of course, as long as we are ethical, that's fine. Now, the art really comes from the fact that there's no one size fit all. There's also a process of launching, looking at how it looks like, understanding based on what you've done on step one, what type of messaging is most likely to hit. And the reason, the way in which we increase the likelihood of our ad copy to perform, or our video ad script that we send to client, our image ad that we create for clients, is because we follow a process. So I'm going to give you in this video the structure that we follow when it comes to actually crafting compelling ads. Specifically, you can use this framework when it comes to either both your ad copy and your video ad script. So everything starts here with the hook. This is really where you want to grab the attention. Why? Because we live in an era where attention is the biggest currency. Unless you're able to get your person's attention and hold it long enough for them to hear what you have to say, nothing is going to happen. So as you write your ads, I like to think about attention first and foremost. And I like to think about action. So I'm thinking, okay, what action do I want them to take after they're done watching the ads, and how do I get their attention? And so you grab the attention here through your hook. And the goal here, there are different ways in which you can actually hook people. We like to have a combination of visual hook, of written hook, and spoken. Why? Because this will allow us to capture the attention in three different ways. So it might be me, for instance, I might slide in the screen, or I might do something with the mic, or this would be the visual hook, or I might just be applying my lipstick, or just juggling a ball. You get the point. Then the written hook is what's gonna appear on the screen, compelling statement, get their curiosity, get them to get their attention. And then the spoken hook is what I'm gonna say. The first three words, because you have 3 seconds before someone scrolls to the next things. So we want definitely to have these three working together in a beautiful way. And you can, in terms of spoken hook, you can start you can hook them by calling out. So let's just come back here because I don't have enough space there. So you can either call out your ideal client. So, hey, if you're a business owner if you're a business owner that's been stuck between $100,000 and $200,000, listen up. That's, I'm calling out my target market. So I will have a call out. You can ask a question, because when you ask a question, it gets them to focus on the answer. And they're like, okay, what does that mean? it's one of the oldest and most effective pattern intro when you ask a question. And then the third one is going to be make a promise. So you have a big, bold claim that you make at the beginning of your ad. That's going to get them to be like, oh, wow, that's kind of crazy. Or it can also be a content-intuitive statement that you make at the beginning. So the goal here, get the attention, get them to pay attention. Now, the second part of this process, after we've hooked them, we want to tell them a story, you know? So this is where you actually introduce yourself. So you introduce yourself, you give them some proof about why they should listen to you. And also you highlight your credibility. Maybe you can in a few sentences you can share more about your hero journey and what you've been through and how you got here. It's not about telling them everything that you've been through. It's really highlighting one or two things that is going to allow them to see themselves in you, and with your transformation being aspirational to them. So for instance, if I am a business coach and I'm helping people scale their company, I might say, hey, if you are a founder that's been stuck below $100,000 a month and you are walking yourself to the ground, listen up. I am Joly Tematio, and a few years ago, I was on the verge of bankruptcy. I was living on my sister's couch. I didn't have any money because my business was just close to getting bankrupt. And then I discovered a system that allowed me to change everything. And within 5 years, I was able to scale my company to multiple seven figures. Now I've been featured in Forbes and Business Insider, and I've helped 200 clients get to this revenue level. And, so that's me giving them a highlight, giving them a story, and allowing them to see themselves in what I've gone through and be like, oh, wow, that's kind of interesting. How did she do that in like such a short time frame? What happened? Keeps an open loop and get them to pay attention to you. So that's the story, right? Because again, your story is what's gonna make you unforgettable, like Lisa Nicole likes to say, and your story is what's gonna make you memorable. And some people most founders sometimes they tend to shy away from their story. They feel like it's too painful, it's going to make them lose credibility. But that's actually where you have connection that's been made, because especially in the age in which we live, where AI is everywhere, you definitely need to have that connection piece if you want to be unforgettable. If you really want to turn your message into a movement, you make that happen, and you become that person, that brand they go to because of what you've been through. It makes your messaging stick in a very powerful way. And that's one thing that I see a lot of founders miss when they think about writing their ads, because they think, well, I'm just gonna give them value, I'm just gonna give them tips, or I'm just gonna pitch and tell them about what I have to say. No, you have to create a connection. They have to feel like they can relate to you, they trust you. You are kind of a best friend in their head, but that's a way above in the step that you are at, in the journey. Now, so this was our step A, and so this will be, we have 4 steps, 5 steps in creating ads. Now, after the story, we actually go with the education. This is where you want to give them an aha moment. This is where you want to make them have a breakthrough, an epiphany with your content. Why? Because this is how you build trust. You need to show them a blind spot. You need to show them something that they have been doing that's not optimal to get there from wherever they are to wherever they desire to be. And unless you do this, that is actually how you establish authority. You know how we sometimes say this is a category queen, this is a category king. You actually do that by this is how you get that authority. And authority is different from credibility. Credibility is, okay, what have you done? That's going to what type of result have you achieved? That's going to make your claim believable. But authority is more like, okay, can you show me? Can you actually teach me what you've done? Because there's a difference between someone that actually has achieved a result and someone being able to teach that result. And for them looking at your ads, they need to be like, or from them watching your ads, they need to feel like, okay, I can learn from this person. I like the way she broke it down. I love the way she articulated that point. And wow, I've never seen it in that way. And if you get people to see things in a different way, they get to trust you a whole lot faster. And that's key. It's like you remove a veil in front of their face and now they see the light, That's what you want to do here. Create an epiphany, aha moment, breakthrough. It doesn't have to be long. Just can just be like one golden nugget. What's a myth that they are following that's not really relevant anymore? And then to which we're gonna lead us once you've educated them, you're gonna go to step C, which is going to be the CTA. Like we said here, this is where we have our action. So this is really what you want to tell them what to do next. What are the next steps? So I'm just gonna say next steps. Oh wow. So do you want them to go and download the book, schedule an appointment, fill out an application, sign up for the webinar? Whatever the case might be, give them the step and actually give them clarity in terms of what's going to look like on the next page. So if you want to learn more, click the button. You're going to go on the page, fill out an application form. It's going to take you less than 30 seconds. Then watch the video, schedule a call. You give them the step that they're gonna take, because the reason why you want to give them the next steps on the ads is because it's going to reduce the bounce rate. If you just say click the link below and go to the next page, click the link and they click and they go and they say, oh, I have to fill out an application form. I didn't sign up for this, and they might just bounce. Next thing you know, you've lost them. So you actually want to tell them what to do next as they get on that page. That's so important. And then finally, this is our next step, which is E, the fifth step. You want to close. Or I'm just going to say close with scarcity and urgency. And this is just one of the oldest way, and it's still incredibly powerful. If there's no urgency, if there's no scarcity, people are not going to move. We human beings are designed just naturally to be lazy. Lazy people. So you definitely need to have an element of urgency that's gonna get them to get off their butt and go ahead and do whatever the case may be. It might be, okay, we have this discount that's gonna expire in the next 48 hours or in the next 35 minute or whatever. We only have this number of spots that are left for this cohort. The price is going to increase, whatever the case might be. And of course, you always want to be ethical, but there's always an element of scarcity and urgency in whatever you're selling, because if you think about it, even if you have a suite of coaches that are working with you to help you, support your client, there is a capacity. You can just work with hundreds of thousands of millions of people. There's always an element of, okay, this only how many people we can work with. And sometimes articulating that in your ads all it takes to actually, get them to move and be like, oh my God, I need to take advantage of this one. So it has to be ethical, it has to be real, but always think about, okay, how can I add this element of scarcity and urgency? And finally, you want to, that's kind of a bonus step, that we sometimes we don't always do it. We like to test it, like 60% of our ads, we like to test this one, which is just twist the pain, remind them remind them of what is costing them to stay where they are. So you really, you twist the knife inside their inside the pain, inside their their leg or their hand or whatever. So this is where you actually highlight what are the consequences of them not taking action. What if nothing changes? What if they keep on doing what they've done in the past? Because sometimes people are not moved by desire, by pleasure. They are moved by pain. And when you remind them of what is costing them to stay where they are and just trying to figure things out on their own, they are more likely to move. So that's next steps, which is very important. And one thing which also you also have in mind when it comes to creating ads. So here we are primarily focused on everything that's copy, video ad, script, or what have you. Now, in terms of volume, we like to start with at least volume in terms of ads. That's so important to. So we like to start with a batch of 10 creatives. 10 video ads and 10 images ad. Why? Because again, since Andromeda update, you definitely want to have, if you're running ads on Facebook, you definitely want to have a good volume to start with. Even if you're running ads on YouTube, we like to test different hooks to see which one perform the best. And it's also easier for client when they can just say, okay, I'm gonna get an afternoon, I'm gonna take a weekend, I'm gonna record all the 10, 12 ads that we send them. I mean, they tell it that they say that to themselves. We send them the script, they record everything in a weekend or in an afternoon. They give it back to us, and we have enough creatives to run for a while. You don't want to be like recording 3 ads and then having to be like, oh my god, I need to record and no. Just crack as many of them as you can, and then you are good for at least a couple of weeks. If you don't think right, we've had ads run for years, for 18 months, we still have the same ads running because it's just crushed because we follow a very proven flow, which is similar to what I've shared with you here. So that's in terms of the volume. You definitely want to have a lot of volume. And now once this is done, once your ads are created, now the next step is going to be understanding the optimization process. That's a very exciting part. So which is going to be our step 3. The optimization is really where you want to look at performance and understand what to do next. It can be very simple, very straightforward if you have a good testing plan. Sometimes the reason why people or business owner or marketing team drop the ball when it comes to optimization is because they're looking at the wrong data. They are not making decisions based on the right KPIs. Because when you look at your ads account, depending on which number you focus on, you might have a completely different story that might distract you from the right action to take. For instance, if I'm running a sales call funnel and I get on my ads dashboard and I look at, okay, here's our cost per lead and here's our CTR, our click-through rate, and here's our opt-in page conversion. And if all of those things look great, I might think, oh, with these ads are crushing it. We don't need to do anything else. We are doing an amazing job. But meanwhile, the company might be losing money. And so what you want to do here is really understanding which KPI am I optimizing for. In this case, if I'm running a sales call funnel, I'm optimizing for cost per call schedule. I'm optimizing for cost per acquisition. So my North Star should be, okay, how much are we spending for a qualified call that's scheduled? How much are we spending to get a client? Doesn't really matter what's the cost per lead. Because if we are getting leads at $5-10, but none of those leads are actually converting, the ads are not really doing their job. So there's no point in scaling the ads if you are not converting those leads. And vice versa, right? I see sometimes business owner getting emotional. Oh, we're spending too much on the leads. It's too expensive. But I'm like, okay, how are those leads converting? Are they showing up for the call? How's the engagement? What's the buying cycle? Because sometimes you might spend $30 or even $50 for a lead, but that lead get on the call and they close for a 15K offer, 50K mastermind. That's worth it. But if you had stopped at, oh, this CPL is too high, you miss the entire point. And optimization is really deeper than just looking at numbers and understanding, okay, which number do we look at and how do we make thoughtful decision based on the data. It's not about emotion and how you feel or how you think things should be. It's really about what's the story behind the numbers. And something which I also want to warn you about when it comes to optimization is not letting industry average dictate which action you take. So something which I see as I work with founder is that sometimes they will say, oh, this is the industry average. This is how people, this is the best we've seen. Or even sometimes agencies say that, okay, this is just the industry average, you can do more than that. I always like to challenge that type of conventional wisdom of, is that the best you can do? Because the average entrepreneur is losing money. The average person is stressed out, is unhappy, is unhealthy, and it's just like not in the place where they want to be. So as a business owner, you want to understand that just looking at, okay, are we within KPIs when it comes to the industry average? Might be good for the short term, but on the long term, you want to have as a standard, how do we exceed the industry average? That's really where really growth lie, and that's how you become a category king or queen in your space. Just wanted to say that because it's possible. I sometimes say, okay, we've been getting 2x ROI on our ads, and we don't think we can do more than that. I'm like, why do you think you can do more than 2x? People in your niche, or people in your space are making 5x, 10x. Why do you just stay content with 2x? Again, just because it's average doesn't mean that that should be your target. Now, when it comes to some rules that you want to have in mind when it comes to optimization, first of all is time. Time is one of the biggest lever that you want to pay attention to when it comes to optimizing. If you've launched your ads today and you are like 48 hours in or 72 hours, then you're already freaking out because you haven't gotten the result that you expect, that's just too fast. You need to give it at least a week, at least 10 days, depends on how much you are spending to get result, especially if you're selling a high ticket product. Why? Because it's different. A high ticket product is going to require you to, the customer cycle is going to be longer. If you're asking someone to invest thousands of dollars to work with you, they're gonna need some nurturing. They're gonna need some, this level of sophistication in your messaging and in your nurturing process on the back end that's designed to establish your credibility before they actually pull the trigger, especially if they have no clue who you are. On the other hand, if you were selling, let's say, a $7 widget, that's like a no point. Of course, you can launch the ad and tomorrow you have like 10 sales because it's $7, right? So understanding, okay, this is gonna take a minute because I'm selling a higher ticket program. It's going to save you of so many headache and that anxiety of, my God, what's happening? Why are we not getting sales? That's just crazy. So you don't get there. Also, like I said earlier, knowing which KPIs to analyze when you decide to scale, very important as well. And once you see something that's working really well, what I want you to do is actually start creating variation. So for instance, you have a creative that's crushing it, just say, okay, you know what, this is working well. Let me have a different variation. Let me double down on this one. For instance, sometimes we have maybe a video ad that work really well, and we take the hook of that video ad and we turn it into an overlay text for an image ad, because we already know, okay, this hook perform really well. Understand, okay, these are my winner. How do I double down? I have this ad copy that's working really well. Can we turn this ad copy now into a video ad script and see what happens? I've identified this audience pocket. They are working, they are crushing it. How do we do more? How do we create a lookalike audience based on those leads, based on those prospects, so that we are able to tap into more of the same audience? Those are all of the different things that you might want to consider when it comes to actually scaling your campaign. It's not about reinventing the wheel every single time, because once you find something that works, first of all, it's hard. Finding something that works, it's hard. It takes iteration, it takes focus, it takes testing. So once you find that thing that's crushing it, don't just be like, oh, I'm just gonna disregard it and move on and find something else. No, be like, okay, how can I squeeze as much juice as this from this marketing as possible? How can I create, if it's an ad copy, how can I create a video ad, an image ads from this, a different variation of the same ad copy, because I know this concept works really well. That's key. And when you see something that's not working, that's losing you money, be ruthless about cutting the losses. Sometimes you can be romantic about a campaign. Oh, I've spent so much time shooting this video, or I've spent so much time on, crafting the audience pocket, or figuring out which combination of interests to use. And we stay kind of married or in love with the idea that this could possibly work, which leads many business owners to actually spend a lot of time hoping that something will convert when it's clearly not going to convert. So cut your losses as fast as possible. If you identify, okay, this is not working, it spent the budget that was allocated to it, and I can clearly see that it's not performing. What I would definitely advise you to do is just be like, okay, I'm just going to cut my losses and turn it off. Especially if you have a winner, it's just part of the game. Some are gonna win, some are going to crush it, some are not going to do it, and the faster you move on to the next thing, the better it's gonna be for you. So you increase your budget on your winning campaign. And I've made a video where I actually talk about how do you go about testing and scaling specifically. So I'm gonna leave those videos here so that you can go and watch them next. But one thing which I also want to highlight in this episode is the fact that you want to, when it comes to optimizing, don't just focus on the ads alone. I want you to think about ads, sure, but also your funnel, also your backends. How does your email nurturing sequence looks like? How do you have an SMS nurturing sequence? Do you have a setup in place that's reaching out to those leads? How fast? What's the speed to contact on those leads? All of those elements are going to play a massive role when it comes to the overall ROI that you get on your ad spend. So don't just obsess over ads, but also look at your entire customer journey and your entire ad funnel and ask yourself, okay, what's the biggest bottleneck that we can plug to accelerate the growth? That's incredibly key because for instance, we have and also understanding, okay, are we looking at the right numbers? Because that's so important. We've had clients that started working with us and we look at the dashboard. They're like, we are losing money on ads, it's not working, da 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 da. And once we set up the right tracking system, whether that's with iRose, triple well, we get report, we have accurate data. So that's so important as well that you definitely want to have that in mind when it comes to your optimization. Because are you even looking at the right numbers? Because if you're optimizing your campaign and you're turning off and turning on things based on data that's wrong, you are just gonna end up losing a lot of money, which I don't want for you. So those are the key pillars of what you want to think through when it comes to, printing money with paid ads, putting $1, getting on the back end 2, 3, 4, even $5 consistently. If there's any question, let me know in the comment section below. If you got value from this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and watch this one next for even more value.